I feel like it's prudent to bring up an old topic of mine today. In the past, ranging from many years ago, I have stood by a particular list. This list contains 5 anime. What is so special about this list? Well, this list is the 5 anime that I recommend everybody to watch before they die. I do not say that you are guaranteed to enjoy everything on this list, nor do I say that it should be confused with my personal top 5 anime of all time list, because that list doesn't actually exist. I've never been able to actually sit and nail down such a list like that, so don't ask. But the 5 anime in question are Cowboy Bebop, Neon Genesis Evangelion, Full Metal Alchemist 2003, Akira, and Trigun. Now, why does this list exist? Well, each of these entries all brought something new to the table when they were first released. Something that is important to at least us as North American viewers. Maybe not in all cases as important to Japanese watchers of anime, but at least to us, I feel that these 5 shows bring something important to the table. And these things that they bring have been in use continually since. Generally, these anime have had monumental effects not just on the Japanese markets where they were first introduced, but very much so here in the North American market. Effects without which I would not be standing here in front of a camera talking to you on a regular basis about those old darn Japanese cartoons. Now, while I have talked about and reviewed several of them in the past, I figured it was time to continue with the ones that I haven't. And so, ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection today. Trigun. Let's jam. Okay, I'm gonna level with you. Before we get into any amount of detail about the show at all, I want to point out that in my opinion, the first episode of Trigun is one of the best first episodes that I've ever had the pleasure of watching. As such, it would be a major disservice to it if I did not urge you to go and at least watch that first episode before hearing anything else that I have to say. Like, you can go pick it up on DVD, and it also should be available on Funimation's site. And if it's not, I'll post like a thingy down here that tells you otherwise. But don't worry, I can wait. No problem. Just go on. I can wait. Just dancing and nothing. Okay, yeah, no, I can't wait. Okay, now, where were we? Well, we seem to be in a rather interesting take on the American Wild West. Buildings made out of clay with that old and decrepit look. The clothing on the majority of characters seemed to come straight off the set of an old Clint Eastwood film. And we start off in a bar, but then we have a slight break in setting. A giant boomerang cleaves the bar in twine, and a group of bandits fills the remainder of the bar by unloading full clips of their AK-47s. So we instantly know that this no longer is your traditional Wild West. In fact, it isn't until much later that you learn that this isn't really the Wild West. Hell, it's not even Earth. It is a post-apocalyptic society inhabited by people who had left Earth on giant spaceships way back when, but then ended up crashing on this desert alien wasteland. The post-apocalyptic nature of the setting, however, allows breaking the traditional tropes of the genre by using this new sci-fi element. This in turn makes conflict in this show much more dangerous than just a couple of guys with pistols. Instead, we have giants with boomerangs, rocket-propelled fists, and a guy that, I shit you not, kills people with music from his saxophone. It's an attack called Saxophone Shockwave. It does 4d8 penetrating armor times 2 spreading static damage. No joke. I got the D20 stats right here. So what's this show about? Well, to be honest, it's about the wacky and crazy adventures of the $20 billion double-dollar man called Vash the Stampede, in a familiar but not quite familiar world to the viewer as we watch him take on all sorts of threats to protect as many people as he can, while eating as many donuts as he can. What I like about the characters in Trigun is almost just how two-faced everyone is. It's kind of a staple of the show, really. Every character is like 2 sides of a single coin. And this is great as far as characterization is concerned, because you can explore a character from one side of the coin, but then you can also explore them from the other side of the coin. For Vash himself, this ties in heavily to why I love the show's first episode so much. It starts off with the opening, where despite getting glimpses of his more carefree and humor-filled side, the majority is about his much darker, serious, and painful side. Follow that up with the original scene from the wrecked bar, and you truly get this feeling that Vash the Stampede is one of the greatest badasses who ever lived. Only to have that followed up by this raving lunatic who seems to be doing everything by the seat of his pants. It reminds me of a story about Gene Wilder during the filming of the live-action adaptation of Roald Dahl's novel Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Wilder apparently asked for his character Willy Wonka to be introduced to the audience carrying a cane and walking towards the crowd with a limp. After the crowd sees Willy Wonka as a cripple, they all whisper to themselves and become deathly quiet. As he walks towards them, his cane sinks into the ground by itself, but he keeps on walking until he realizes that he no longer has his cane. Then he starts to fall forward, and just before he hits the ground, does a beautiful forward somersault and bounces back up to great applause. Now, why did he do this? Well, because from that point on, no one will truly know if he is lying or telling the truth. Constantly throughout the show, it's like Vash has two different personalities that work in tandem with each other, but you never know which is the real Vash the Stampede, if either of them are. He's not the only one that does this sort of thing either, though he is the most prominent. We also have the Insurance Girls, Meryl Streep and Millie Thompson, both introduced as serious characters with a job to do, but then soon shown to just kind of be winging it and hoping for the best. Not to say that they are incompetent at all. Oh no, you don't walk around with a giant chain gun and a crap ton of pistols if you don't know how to use them, but they themselves have two sides. Another great example is Nicholas D. Wolfwood, a seemingly harmless traveling preacher with a confession church and a giant-ass cross that he carries around. At first you might be thinking, wow, he's really devout to the teachings of God, reenacting Jesus carrying the cross like that. Till, of course, you find out that the thing is full of guns! All of the guns! Which side of him is real, the preacher or the mercenary? You will never know. And all of this, is from characters from the 90s. Because yeah, this show was released in 1998. We don't get this kind of characterization from shows that come out now. And it's a shame that some people will never sit down to experience this. Why? Because it looks so old. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. Trigun's animation is quite dated by most people's standards. There are some who would say it does not stand the test of time. And while I do not necessarily agree with those people, I can see the reasonings behind that opinion. When your setting is more or less a wasteland, it's not necessarily a place where you would expect a lot of detailed background work. In fact, most of the world itself seems rather slipshod on the whole. That said, this allows the animations for the characters themselves to be rather detailed, executing a variety of different expressive motions depending on the situation. The only thing of note within the backgrounds, I think, is this little game that I like to call Spot That Darn Cat. There's this black cat that shows up in every single episode of the show. No good reason why, but he's there. It's kind of like a little fun game where you try to make sure that you notice him every single episode. Not that it's hard half the time. The soundtrack, in contrast, is quite well done, and that does indeed stand the test of time. Most of it is this weird blend of rock and synth into the styles that feel alien and barren, which, as we learned earlier, is the perfect fit for this show. But the music also has that ability to follow in the footsteps of our main character's actions, being upbeat when it needs to be before transitioning into songs like my favorite on the entire soundtrack, Scattered Rain, an eerie guitar solo that leads into faster movements and finishes off with a Pink Floyd-esque riff at the end. Just freaking beautiful. And the dub. Now, I'm not gonna stand here and say that the dub is perfect, but it's pretty damn good, to the point where I feel such disappointment that we're not able to hear the majority of this voice cast anywhere else. They don't really do anime anymore. Seriously, have Dorothy Elias Fawn, Lee Sargent, or Jeff Nimoy in a dub, and I'll watch it, just for them alone. Of course, Trigun was also the first anime work for the now well-known voice of Johnny Young Bosch, and I have to say, it's still one of his best. Now, how do you finish off a section like this, where you just talked about an awesome soundtrack and a good dub? With an air guitar solo! Because I need to bring attention to the show's opening, HT, and just how frigging amazing it is, it's disheartening to know that there isn't really a longer version of the song, at least in the same style. There's a longer, trance-type version that was released, but nothing in the same vein of the opening itself, which is depressing. Still, though, what we have is amazing! stand here, and part of me doesn't feel like I've done this show justice. It's kind of hard to put into words why this story and these characters just work so well. Vash has this philosophy, a set of morals that he lives by, aside from him wanting the world to be filled with love and peace, which is very important to him. He lives by the belief that nobody has the right to take another life. And it's not one of those nice thought kind of beliefs either, where he just lectures people on why they should not kill. In fact, he never really has any words to say to those people who kill. Just a warning that if they don't stop killing, he will stop them. He shows his philosophy through his actions, going so far as to even do superhuman feats to accomplish them. That's why I enjoyed it, and that's why, along with everything else that I've said so far, you should watch this show before you die. Though, preferably sooner. With all that said, after carefully considering all aspects of the show and then letting my thoughts shoot at me while I run away like a little bitch, I have awarded Trigun with an overall rating of Certified Frosty, a rating for only the best of the best, and those shows too important to ignore. It really does not deserve to be anything less, being the absolute roller coaster of action and comedy that it is. And now, since I've said that, you can go ahead and watch it as soon as possible. How do you go about doing so? Well, at the time of this video, Trigun has been licensed and is available from Funimation Entertainment on DVD, and is also available for legal streaming on their website if you happen to have access to it. There's also Hulu if you're American, but not anybody else, because, you know, Hulu, jerks. For alternate anime recommendations, I point you towards a more comedy-aspected series known as Desert Punk, a show that is much more lewd than Trigun ever hoped it to be, but an absolute blast nonetheless. There's also Outlaw Star, for a more sci-fi oriented series which does not fail to impress, even if it doesn't impress quite as much. Between those two, you should hopefully find something to your liking. And that's it from me. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined, and hey, if you like what I do here and feel like helping out, please consider going and visiting my Patreon page, and if you feel it within your heart, also consider donating. A very special thanks to Bradley Stroder for donating already. I'm gonna run out of crazy shit to do in the thanks for these people, like Bradley, because I still got 2 more to do, people! Well, and, you know, everything after that. But until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.